BuyTwoWayRadios.com. Check, check. BuyTwoWayRadios.com.
It's the Two-Way Radio Show.
And welcome to the Two-Way Radio Show. I'm Rick Savoya.
And I'm Danny Feemster.
And this is the podcast about two-way radios for business and consumer communications. Today we'll discuss the reintroduction of a bill proposed to Congress in 2023 to allow ham radio operators to erect antennas in deed-restricted communities and the grassroots effort to get it passed. We'll also take some of your comments and questions from our blog, YouTube channel, and our forum at twowayradioforum.com. Our show is sponsored by BuyTwoWayRadios.com, the source of two-way radios and radio accessories for businesses and consumers since 2002. BuyTwoWayRadios.com, your radio specialists. In 2023, a bipartisan bill titled Amateur Radio Emergency Preparedness Act was introduced to the U.S. House of Representatives. This bill proposed to amend the Communications Act of 1934 to prohibit the application of certain private land use restrictions to amateur radio station antennas in HOAs. It didn't pass. Now, the bill is back, and with it, a grassroots effort to push it through legislation from none other than the ARRL.
You know, I've been impressed with the ARRL lately. I mean, it seems like they are on it with this lobbying effort. Like we just did an episode a couple of maybe months ago about a Pennsylvania law that the ARRL was involved in having updated at the last minute to exclude amateur radios from falling under some cell phone law. Am I right about that? Am I remembering correctly?
They've been a little bit more on the ball lately. I don't know if that has to do from any flack that they've taken in the past. I know that they have taken some flack from amateur radio operators for certain things, maybe things that they're not being proactive enough about, or maybe some amateur radio operators have felt of late that they're not really being represented properly by the ARRL. So maybe they're really making some changes to it. I don't think they were really very, very proactive. I think I don't know what was going on there, to be honest.
Well, it seems to me like this year, over the last few months at least, they seem to be very much on top of the lobbying efforts. And I don't know. I feel like my annual fee is going to good use with them. I'm pretty happy to see them doing this. Now, I have some, I guess, questions about this bill and all that. But I think the ARRL is doing what they're supposed to be doing by trying to get, I guess, exemptions for ham radio put into legislation.
Well, we'll see what happens here with this particular situation.
Well, the antenna situation, we've done an episode on in the past, right, where this has been an ongoing effort. And to have it to where HOAs can't say you're not allowed to put up an amateur radio antenna.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this hasn't been introduced a couple of times. In fact, let's go ahead and give an overview of what's going on here. Now, if you've heard or watched our podcast discussion on HOA antenna limits in April of 2024, this would be episode 189. You can go back and listen to it. We covered what was at the time called HR 4006, which was the Amateur Radio Emergency Preparedness Act. Now, this bill aimed to rein in private land use restrictions that block the use of amateur antennas and homeowners associations, also known as HOAs. And after that episode was released, we really didn't hear anything more about it. And there was a reason for that. It's because the 118th Congress was in session at the time, and that Congress ended without any action on it. Now, that was not a really big surprise to us because I think even at the time, Danny, you and I were talking about the odds of maybe the bill even getting some serious scrutiny by Congress, or even passed by Congress. It was pretty low. And I think it was somewhere like 2% or something like that. It was very, very low percentage-wise. And, it was disappointing. It was disappointing, but it wasn't unexpected. I mean, we kind of knew that was going to happen. But all is not lost because in the 119th Congress, it's back. The bill is back. In fact, we've got two bills back with new bill numbers and a full grassroots effort by the ARRL to get it passed this time. Now, here's a little history on this. And historically, back in 2017, the House Resolution Act, H.R. 555, and the Senate S. 1534 introduced the Amateur Radio Parity Act, or ARPA. And that was introduced in both the House and the Senate, versions of it. And basically, what happened was it was moving along a little bit, and then the Association of HOAs, yes, the HOAs have an association of HOAs, not surprisingly, and their own little thing there. They stepped in and they said, "Well, no, we can't have this because it's going to really hurt our power and our influence, over the homeowners." And so they got into it, and they were able to water down the bill so much that it lost all of its teeth. It just had no bite anymore. It was basically rendered pretty much, useless at that point. And in the end, I think it was held up in Congress, and in the end, it was essentially pretty much done in by one senator in the vote, and that was Senator Bill Nelson. He was a Democrat from Florida. And so at the time, everything just kind of died with that bill. That bill just died. So in 2023, around 2024, these bills were introduced or reintroduced as H.R. 4006. That was the one introduced in the House. And I think there was one in the Senate as well, I believe. But we're going to concentrate on H.R. 4006. And we covered that. That's the one we covered in episode 199 of the Two-Way Radio Show podcast. And after the episode was released, the 118th Congress ended. No action on it. Now, this is what happened to the bill. When Congress adjourns, sine die, that's Latin for without a day, sine die. Some people call it sine die, or whatever. It's as I understand it, the actual pronunciation is sine die. It's a Latin term. It means without a day. When Congress adjourns at the end of its 2-year term and the legislation hasn't passed, it does not carry over into the next Congress. And instead, it just kind of dies on the vine pretty much. It's gone. So it has to be reintroduced in the next Congress. And in practical terms, H.R. 4006 just died at that point. Now the bill is being revived. They're making another effort. In late January, early February of 2025, bipartisan companion bills were introduced in Congress. And let me see if I can pull out these bill numbers, because these bill numbers are okay. It was H.R. 1094 in the House and S. 459 in the Senate. Now, both of these bills would require homeowners associations to accommodate amateur radio antennas. They would prohibit blanket bans on antennas, outline reasonable approval processes when you're applying to have an antenna put up in your HOA, and it would preempt restrictions that prohibit, restrict, or impair the amateur antennas while allowing safety and code compliance rules.
So this isn't even some like blanket. You've got to allow any antenna anyone wants to put up. It's saying you've got to be reasonable and allow some level of amateur antennas if a homeowner wishes to have one. There's got to be an approval process. You've got to be able to say this is what I want to do, and there's got to be rules around what you're allowed to do.
Correct.
It can't be a blanket, no antennas at all.
Right. And some HOAs are like that. You can't have any you can't have any ham antennas, which is really kind of interesting. We'll get to that in a minute. So the measures were referred to the House Energy and Commerce and Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation committees, and they currently sit at the introduced stage, where the bills are being introduced. And the texts in both of these bills are very, very similar to the bill in 2024, that proposal. Preempting private land use restrictions that prohibit, restrict, or impair amateur antennas while allowing safety and code compliance rules, as I already mentioned. It also specifies approval timelines for HOA applications and exempts certain small wire, vertical, and flagpole antennas from prior approval. And this is kind of an important point too. Here's the thing with, and people say, well, they've passed rules like that before, where there was a while back, there was a lot of issue taken up with the fact that people in HOAs couldn't put up an antenna or for TV or satellite dish or something like that. And that caused a lot of problems for people that wanted to have outdoor antennas to improve their television reception, and of course for satellite dishes and internet dishes and things like that. So Congress had to step in at the time and said, no, you can't keep people from doing that. That's just too restrictive. So at the time, I think there was a law passed that allowed those kind of things. Flagpoles was another thing. It's like, you had to, people could be allowed to put up flagpoles, certain restrictions apply, that sort of thing, but you could have one. But it specifically did not include ham antennas, ham radio antennas. And that's what the issue was. So some HOAs were skirting around the fact that, you've got a radio antenna. That's not a TV antenna. That's not a satellite dish. That's a radio antenna. So you can't have that. And
so you're saying there's already legislation that's passed that is similar to this that exempts other types of devices like TV antennas and satellite dishes.
Correct.
So there's a law on the book saying an HOA can't unreasonably prohibit those items.
Mm-hmm.
But because amateur antennas weren't in that list, some HOAs don't like them and are that's excluding them.
That's exactly right. Here's the thing about that. Some amateur radio operators have gotten around this somewhat by making their flagpoles antennas. Flagpole antenna, you've heard of that, and the flagpole antenna types, and they've done other things like antennas around in the gutters and in the attics. That's the attic antennas are fairly popular with some hams in HOAs, but there are issues with all of those things. They're not perfect, and they do kind of restrict a ham's ability to transmit and receive as they would like. That's why, this bill is really going to help that if it's passed. So, that's pretty much where we are.
What are the prospects of this bill? Is there any reason to think this bill is in better shape than the last bill? You're telling me it's sitting at an introduced stage, which feels very early in the process. It seems like, from what I'm seeing, maybe it's been introduced by someone, but there's not a lot of momentum for it right now. Would that be accurate?
Well, it's it does have a little better. Can't say it's better sponsorship. It has a little more sponsorship this time around. I think there are 4 senators supporting this, which I think last time there were only 2. So it has a little bit more support behind it than the last bill had. And the problem is, and this is the issue from before. The problem is the association of these HOAs is going to rear its ugly head again and saying, well, we can't have this. And because we were successful the first time around in getting this bill, killed off, then well, let's do it again. Let's just keep it going because we're a very powerful lobby group. This is the Association of HOAs talking here. We're a very powerful lobby group, and we have a lot of money, basically taken from the associations who've taken it from all the homeowners, whether they wanted to give it to them or not. So the homeowners really have no real say in this per se. And now that's my opinion. I'm interjecting. Is keep in mind that's my own opinion, but
you're not a fan of HOAs.
I'm not a fan of HOAs, and I live in one, and that should tell you that I'm even less of a fan. Why I'm not a fan of HOAs, we can go into that, but I went to the rant last time. I don't want to go into it this time. This life is too short, But and so is this podcast. But be that as it may, this is the issue that we're confronted with now. We've got this bills in. It doesn't mean it's a slam dunk by any sense of the word. In fact, it's just as vulnerable as the last bills that were introduced of being sunk in Congress right away, and that's why we really need to take action. Hams, I think, at this point in time, really need to come together. And whatever your thoughts are on the ARRL or whatever they may be, this is really a time to kind of come together and unify on this issue. And even if you don't live in an HOA, because a lot of hams don't, it's a good time to come together and support your fellow hams who really want to have those antennas, but can't, and help everyone out. Now there's a way to do it. The ARRL is kind of leading the charge on this with a new grassroots campaign, and this is what they're doing. The ARRL has launched a nationwide Pass the Bill campaign, and it's urging every U.S. amateur to send letters to their representatives and senators. And we will have this link in the show notes. And we already have an article on our site at by2wayradios.com that covers this, that has the link in it as well. There's a link to the ARRL page that summarizes, the page summarizes the bills, explains the need for their passage, and especially in terms of emergency communications, and then links to another page, which is a one-click letter tool. That's what they're calling it, a one-click letter tool to contact Congress. Now, this is going to make it easy for you. So it's not like everybody has to pen individual letters to Congress, that sort of thing. And you can do that if you want. I think that's even better. But this makes it really easy for anyone who doesn't have the time or the inclination to do that, to just go to that one-click letter tool, and it's a form, and you just fill out the form and then just send it off. And that will generate a letter to Congress in support of this bill. Now, this campaign announcement just went live. It went live September 17th, 2025. And that was after the reintroduction of the bills in February. The ARRL's news release that they released recently, it really underscored the role that amateur radio plays in public safety when other systems fail. So there's a lot of reason for having these antennas in HOAs that benefit not just the amateur radio operator, but the entire neighborhood that they live in and the entire community around them. So there's a lot of reasons for supporting this bill. This page that the ARRL put up also names the bipartisan sponsors that are leading the effort. Let's see, we have Senator Roger Wicker, Senator Richard Blumenthal, Representative August Pfluger, and Representative Joe Courtney. Those are the four that are supporting. So it has some backing. It does, which is a good thing. So that's where we are right now. So you go to the page and fill it out, and you can send that information off, send that letter off to Congress, and it doesn't really cost you anything. Just a little bit of your time, effort. That's it.
Well, I think, this will definitely benefit many of our customers. So I think it's a good thing to publicize and put out there. But I would like to play devil's advocate for a second and ask, and I'm not necessarily opposed to this at all, but I tend to have kind of small L libertarian leanings. And I do wonder, is this the kind of thing that we want the federal government doing? Saying at the federal government level across the whole country, imposing rules on every HOA in the country. Would it not be better if you're in an HOA? An HOA is as local as it gets as far as government, right? Would it not be better to just talk to your neighbors and get an exception approved through your local HOA? In that do we want massive laws like this that affect everyone in the country passed?
Well, that's a really good question, Danny. And the answer to that is pretty simple. The fact that the HOAs in general, evidenced by the fact that there's an association to protect the homeowner associations, the HOAs in general have a lot of power. They have immense power and influence. And because of that, there are certain rights, like in the case of what we were talking about before, the flagpole antennas or the flagpoles and the satellite dishes and the TV aerials. People do have certain rights. And when you have an HOA that's starting to step on your individual rights, the life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. I would think that liberty and the pursuit of happiness it falls under some of that to some degree.
But don't you sign on when you move into a neighborhood with an HOA? Don't you kind of sign on to saying I agree to give up some of these rights in exchange for some control over what we're allowed to? I'm not in an HOA. I haven't been in an HOA in a while, but.
Well, that's the problem.
Some people would say that's the benefit. I don't want my neighbor putting, something crazy on their house that's going to lower my value, or never mowing their lawn.
That's
I think
the
I'm
problem.
more on your side here, but I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit.
No, that's the problem with the HOAs is that over time, see, originally HOAs were designed to kind of. I tell you, the real background between HOAs were about keeping the community clean and keeping out riffraff and stuff like that. You can go back and look it up yourselves. That's basically the true origins of these homeowner associations. Kind of keep them a little more exclusive. But the original argument for having an HOA is to keep the property values up by keeping the old rusty vehicles on cinder blocks out of the yards and keeping the lawns mowed and keeping the houses painted and painted a decent color, things like that. However, over time, what has happened is these HOAs have gained more and more power by introducing more and more rules that are now more draconian than anything else. And, we can go through all the horror stories of the neighborhood Karens or whatever that run around and want to run the neighborhood. But there comes a point in time when you realize, your freedom of expression, your freedom of speech in certain times have in certain cases have been restricted or practically removed. You should be able to put out, if you support, say, a political candidate of your choice, it doesn't matter who, you should be able to put a sign out in your yard if you want to do that. If you want to have a flag in your yard, you should have the right to do that. If you have, if you want to say what you want to say on your own property or do what you want to do on your own property, you should have the right to do that. You should be able to do that. There are rights of property ownership that were, as I recall, were kind of established way back when during the founding of the country, that property owners had certain rights that we seem to have lost, and that's because over time these HOAs have come in and they've taken them away. And
but the HOAs
sometimes
were granted the HOAs were granted that power by the people who live in the neighborhood.
Yes and no. See, here's the thing: if you want to live in the neighborhood, then you're kind of forced to sign that agreement.
Well, that's part of the deal.
Whether or not, no, just a minute now, because I know that there are going to be people out there that say, "Well, Rick, if you don't like, because you live in an HOA, if you don't like the HOA, why don't you just move out? You don't have to live there. You don't have to live in the HOA."
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Not everyone has that ability to make that choice per se. Sometimes the choices are severely limited. So if you want to live in a certain neighborhood that, say, for instance, if you've got a job and you need to commute to that job within a certain distance, if you have a young family and you need to go somewhere where there are schools for that, for those kids, if you need certain medical issues attended to, and you need to be somewhere nearby a medical facility to accommodate them, you're kind of restricted if the only options for living in those areas are communities run by homeowner associations, HOAs. If you want, these days,
I understand that.
These days, a lot of
this one.
Well, the thing is that a lot of the non-HOA communities are in more rural areas. Everything is kind of 80% of communities in many cities, and sometimes more, are governed by HOAs now. They've grown exponentially to where
I agree.
If you want to live in a house
difficult.
in a community, it's difficult not to find one.
Correct.
So,
in a neighborhood, you're most likely going to have to deal with an HOA no matter where you move.
Exactly.
I completely understand that.
So if you want to live there, you don't really have a choice.
Ask it. Like if you have a reasonable request, tell me why this doesn't work. Like if you want to put up an amateur antenna and that's against the rules of your HOA, why is it out of the question that you could convince half of your neighbors to vote for someone on the board or for a rule change that would allow this antenna? If you what you're asking for is reasonable, it seems like everyone, I can't imagine if you're not wanting to put up some, spaceship size antenna on top of your house, most of your neighbors aren't going to complain about that and they're going to be okay with it. So why not get them on board and have it passed that's allowed?
Well, having lived in several HOAs myself, I can tell you from personal experience, it's not that easy. It's not that cut and dried. There are
but
different
you're
HOAs.
Saying an act of Congress, of the federal government, is the right answer. It seems like that's a little heavy-handed.
Well, normally I would say Congress stay out of it, but in cases like this, if your rights are being trampled on, pretty much, or if they're being threatened, then that's something that Congress is supposed to do. It's supposed to protect your rights, your constitutional rights, and that's when sometimes that's the only resolution is to have somebody step in to protect those rights, not to impose more regulations or rules, but to kind of strip away some of those regulations and make it easier for people to live where they want to live.
What if there were like a massive number of people in the country who were really against mowing their lawn ever, and they found a few Congress people that were willing to introduce a bill prohibiting HOAs from making a rule requiring you to ever mow your lawn? I mean, would that be a similar case? Is that also a rights violation? You have the
Well,
lawn.
yeah. Well, now we're taking it into we're taking way down in the rabbit hole. Now we're talking about we're not talking about ratings anymore. Now we're just talking about HOAs in general, which we did last time.
Sure.
But I'm not trying to make this an hour and a half show. But
Yeah.
but just briefly, when it comes to these HOAs, so getting back to your original point. When it comes down to these HOAs, they all have slightly different rules and slightly different ways of handling proposals to change those rules. There are some HOAs that say, if you want to make change, you can make the change with 2/3 of the homeowners passing it. Then there's some that make it really, really difficult to do that, where it says, well, you've got to have so many homeowners sign off on this, and you got to take it to the board, and they have to look it over and see if maybe they can approve even presenting it up for a vote. And then in that vote, you have to have a quorum of so many to even vote there. So they kind of make it difficult. Some of them, it's not too bad. I mean, some of these, I've been in an HOA before where it wasn't a big deal and they were pretty easy on the homeowners, but that was because that was run by the homeowners, and most of the homeowners all knew each other and they were, friends, and it wasn't a big deal. But there are a lot of homeowner associations where it's not the case. And a lot of other homeowner associations, more and more these days, where the homeowners don't actually want to be involved with running the HOA to begin with, so that gets turned over to a community management company, a company that manages the association for them. And
the last time I lived
cases,
in a neighborhood, that's what my situation was. There was a company that would basically come by and send you letters, and your neighbors weren't even really involved.
Yeah.
And that's where I am sympathetic to you. Like, I feel like the idea is good that you're going to go around and get your neighbors to sign off on these changes. But in reality,
much.
like, your neighbors don't really care about your antenna problem, and they're not going to go vote. And no one in the community, you got like 10 busybodies that are really into running the HOA, and no one else cares to ever be bothered with it. And that's the reality on the ground, I think, most of the time.
Well, speaking of the ground,
I am sympathetic, and I'm playing devil's advocate for the most part with these questions.
Mm-hmm. So, well, speaking of the ground, that brings up a point that there was a Florida woman not too long ago. This was a story that made national news, and this is a prime example of where the HOAs were just out of control. She had some brown grass in her yard under a tree, and they cited her for that, and they told her she had 30 days to get rid of it. And apparently, she had tried to do that. As I recall from reading, she had tried to do that, and it didn't work. And this was during the hottest part of the year, in the summertime. And I guess maybe they were drought-like conditions or whatever it was. She had a little patch of brown grass there, and they told her she had 30 days to fix that, or apparently they were going to take her to court or whatever. And so she tried. Apparently, didn't work. I think they cited her for some other things, like a dent in her garage door and a dirty mailbox, stuff like that. Anyway, so she was supposed to go to court over this, and she had to appear in court, and she missed the court date, so they threw her in jail. And the HOA apparently had supported or recommended that as well. So she didn't go to jail for having, reports were saying that she went to jail for having brown grass. Actually, no, she went to jail because she missed the court date. That's a different thing altogether. But the point is that it escalated to that point where she's having to go to court and serve time in jail and things like that for brown grass stuff that in Florida, and I'm from Florida, and I know how that works. And if it's hot in Florida and you've got brown grass and you've got water restrictions, there's not a whole lot you can do to fix that. And so she was,
spray paint.
What's that? Spray paint? Yeah, I thought you do in China. In China, they'll spray the grass green and make it look nice. I've heard that story too. I don't know how true that is either, but I've heard it.
I think I've seen that. I think I've seen a video of them doing that.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, and I know a person personally who had issues with their HOA where they come around, they'd measure her grass. I mean, they would measure her grass to see, okay, if it's just a little bit above here, you got to cut it. You have so many days to cut it. Or those little paint chip up there, you had so many days to fix that paint. Something that from a distance, nobody would even see, you know. They would get cited for that. I think stuff like that just gets so ridiculous with some of these HOAs, these people running the HOAs who just, they have nothing to do with their time. They have nothing but maybe they should become ham radio operators, and then they'll have a hobby, a useful, productive hobby.
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
I support that for sure.
Anyway, so the bottom line is what you can do, how you can help. Write to Congress. That's the most direct action you can do right now. Send letters to your representative and both senators using the ARRL tool, and that's the sendaletter.org. We'll have the link. Tommy, you can throw the link up there again, so everyone
we'll have it in the show notes
watching
and
can
the
see
video
it.
description.
Yeah, we'll have that all together. Personalize your note. It's important to do this. So personalize your note with a local emergency comms experience if you have it. If you have some emergency comms to let people know, this is why we're supporting it, because that is a big deal. That's a very, very important aspect. And that's a very important point to make when sending this letter, is that, you need this for emergency comms, not just for me, not even just for my neighborhood, immediate neighborhood, but for the surrounding community. We do a lot of good with this. Then you can track the bills. You can bookmark the congress.gov pages for HR 1094 and S.459. So you can monitor the co-sponsors and the committee movement with this bill. And really, the momentum builds when lawmakers see that there's a lot of sustained constituent interest in these bills, and they're more apt to act on them. And once again, it's not going to prevent the big association of HOAs to come in and try to get rid of it or water it down to nothing. But there's a better chance of it maybe passing more intact if we have that movement of people saying, please, pass this bill or pass these bills as written and make it happen. And it can happen. That's really important. Now, because this is legislation, the immediate forum is Congress. It's not the FCC. Okay, so this is not really an FCC issue right now. Now, if the bills pass, then the FCC may open a rulemaking to implement the law once it becomes a law. But for the time being, and that's when it'll matter to contact the FCC. But for the time being, it's not commenting to the FCC or contacting the FCC isn't really going to make a difference. It's Congress. So you really need to direct your letters to Congress, to your representatives. Yeah. And you can follow the ARRL's advocacy page for alerts on any related FCC dockets. So you can do that to keep in track. And we'll keep following the progress of these bills, see how they're progressing, see what happens with them. We'll keep you informed. But in the meantime, if you live under an HOA and you care about radio communications where you live, please send your letters now and tell your radio club. If you belong to a ham radio club, do the same thing. Now, let me interject one more thing here. I know that there are a lot of GMRS people watching this. Some GMRS operators are also hams. Some hams are also GMRS operators, but some are not. So if you are a GMRS operator, this is important to you as well, because this falls under that same umbrella. If you can't have a ham antenna, you can't have a GMRS antenna. So right, and let's get this going. Still with me, Danny?
I'm still with you. I
Okay.
absolutely agree. If this is something you support, check the link in the show notes or in the description of the video, and contact your representative.
All right.
Now's the time.
Yep. Any other comments on this?
No, I think we got it.
All right. All right. Well, we have some comments and questions from our blog, YouTube channel, and our forum at twwradioforum.com. Our first one comes from Alan. And Alan is asking about the KG805G. Alan wants to know, KG805G, how does the auto lock function work? And that's from Alan. You want to go with that one first, Danny?
Let's see. How does the auto lock function work? I believe you have to hold down the exit key to unlock the radio. Like if you have auto lock on, it will lock the keypad.
So basically, you go into the menu and you set up auto lock in the menu. But here's the thing that you can just lock and unlock as you need to. You don't have to set the auto lock feature. But the purpose of having the auto lock feature is so that if you got your radio, you stick it on your hip or somewhere else on your body, and you're worried about maybe getting accidental key presses, then you can have it set to auto lock the keys after a certain period of time of inactivity. So this prevents the keys from accidentally
some radios
being pressed.
have the ability. Some radios have the option to where you can decide what locks. I guess you're saying the 805G doesn't have that option. Like maybe you don't want the PTT to work, or maybe you do want the PTT to still work even if the radio is locked.
It's been a while since I've looked at the 805 in particular. Yes, you are correct. But in the 805 in particular, I think it's a little bit simpler than some of the others, like the like on the 935G Plus or something like that. But basically what you do is you go in the menu, you set it, and then I think on the 805G is after about 15 seconds. I think that's the time period. Then it auto locks. And all you need to do is just pick it up and use the lock unlock button feature to unlock it manually if you want to do that. That's a handy feature.
But what activates that? There's not a lock unlock button, is there?
Yeah, you press and hold there's a lock button. Let me see if I've got an 805. Do I have an 805 in front of me? I have. Yeah, I do. I have an 805 right here. Here. This is an 805. This is an 805M. It's the same thing. I think what you press, and the battery's dead on it. I think what you have to do is you press and hold the exit button. I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I think it's you held the exit.
Yeah,
it's not labeled lock though on the radio, is it?
No, it's not labeled lock, but it becomes your lock button. I think you can. I'm not sure, but I think you can. Can you set it with a PF key? Maybe, I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't think so. I think it's fixed to being the exit key on that one, but my memory may be a little fuzzy.
It's been a while since I've looked at the 805. It's been a while since I've used my 805M. I can tell you that the battery's dead.
Or maybe you just use it a lot and you drained it.
Well, what I do is I switch out the batteries like I get lazy sometimes. And so if I'm using the 805G, which I do use it sometimes, and I have an 805G and an 805M and an 805F, and they always use the same battery. And so sometimes I get lazy and it's like, well, if the 805G battery gives out, or starting to give out, I just, grab one of the other radios and swap the batteries out, and then I'm good to go. So, and then I have to remember to charge them all up. But yeah, this is a good reason to have backup batteries. It is. And it's also a good reason to have the newer ones that charge USB-C, which this is the old one. It doesn't.
Tell you what, people love that USB-C accessory for the 805 series. I mean, the 805 has been around for a number of years now, and it seems like we got a huge wave of sales on that USB-C battery when it was first released. because people want to upgrade, and it is so much more convenient. But I do love the 805 series.
Yeah.
I think the 805 has the best receiver of all the GMRS radios we sell.
That's
And it's such a low price point too, at $80.
Yeah.
The receiver's fantastic.
Well, it's also easy to hold. It's easy for anybody in the family to use. Anybody can use it, and it's not little kids can use it. And it's very simple. It's not complicated to use at all. Menu's simple, easy to navigate and use. And the thing is with USB-C, that's a plus.
Is that what we're doing? We're plugging it. We're
not really. It wasn't.
Is that why you picked that question?
No, it wasn't my intent. It was just a nice question. By the way, I think Tommy's working on a short video to show how to use the auto-lock feature on the 805 as well. He's working up.
Well, we should have asked him
a video for that. Yeah,
pulled him in to answer the question. We've got an expert there.
Yeah, we have some other comments here, questions. There's some comments in our YouTube channel. I thought this was kind of funny. Tommy showed this to me the other day, and I thought, okay, I gotta include this. This is from Bob Glenn, and these comments are coming from episode 205. When we were talking about the Baofeng radios, particularly the DM-UV32 or DM32UV. And Bob says, Baofeng UV5R radios is the best thing that ever happened to ham radio. And I can't really disagree with it because it really has brought some life to it. He had another comment here. He says, please put out more on walking owners through how to program the Baofeng DM32. Thank you. And that's from Bob Glenn. And by the way, we just put out a video. Tommy and Steven from our tech department put out a video just yesterday about programming the encryption keys in the DM32UV. And then we have some more coming out for that radio. So, we've taken that under advisement, and we'll get that going. Now, this is the one that really I thought was kind of funny that I missed it before. This is from Expandamon. And we were talking about, I think I made a comment, or you had made a comment, something, we were both talking about the UV5Rs in people's closets. And Expandamon says, there's a reason why they're sitting in the closets. That's from Expandamon. I guess there could be several reasons why, but...
Well, I think the second comment that you read there, where talking about how the UV5Rs got a lot of people into the hobby, I think there's something to that, and maybe that's why they're in the closet. Is people have become ham radio operators and moved on to better radio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me pull another one.
It's the gateway radio.
Yeah, it is. It is. Let me pull one more up here. This is from, let's see. This is from Ben Hur, UDX358. He says, it's the only manufacturer, referring to Baofeng, it's the only manufacturer that kept the hobby going and got myself to take the ham exam again and get relicensed. Say whatever you want about the brand, but eventually they will crush the really only two big boys left, Yaesu and ICOM. Eventually Baofeng will likely make an HF 100-watt radio sub $500, and then the big two are in trouble. And that's from Ben Hur, UDX358. I don't know. You have thoughts on that, Danny?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, why would we think that they're never going to enter that market? I mean, it makes sense that eventually they'll have something. Mm-hmm. It's competitive. Now, the question is, it'll probably be terrible for the first couple of years. And then after a while, it'll get better and better and better. And I mean, if you have a very good radio that does 90% of what the $2,000 ICOMs and Yaesus do, and it's $400 or $500, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me. I don't have any inside info on it or anything, but it's got to be something they're looking at, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and this last one comes from Murftron, And Murftron says, "Hi, I'm looking for a microphone with a K1 plug that also has a CB/button style connector on the back. I have a mic holder in my car that's this style, but all K1 ham/GMRS mics seem to have clips. Why is this? Is there an adapter option?" And that's from Murftron. And there's definitely a reason for it. So I don't know. You want to answer that one first, Danny?
Well, if you've got the answer, don't keep us in suspense, Rick.
Well, this is very simple. The reason that the hand speaker mics with K1 type connectors have clips and not hangers like you would find, in a vehicle, is just simply because those connectors are generally used for portable handheld radios, and those portable handheld radios are going to have, not all of them, but a lot of them, more and more of them now are going to have K1 style connectors or 2-pin plug connectors, that sort of thing. They're going to have the clips because this is so that you can clip it to your belt, you can clip it to your shoulder, you can clip it, somewhere on you. That's what that's for. Of course,
there aren't mobile radios with the K1 adapter.
Right. That's because those mobile radios are either going to have a 4, 5, 6-pin connector that connects to the mobile, or it's going to have an RJ45 type connector in the case of some of these, like some of the Oceans. And those are going to have hangers to hang into the vehicle. They just don't make the hangers for, they just don't make the hangers for handhelds.
You may be able to find a replacement hanger and then 3M tape it onto your mic or something. Another thing I've seen are magnetic mounts. You can place a magnet on the back of your mic or a magnet in your vehicle, and use some kind of adhesive in your vehicle, and then your mic just sticks to the magnet. And that's
I think we sell a couple of those.
An easier alternative.
We sell one or two of those.
It seems like we do.
Yeah.
We used to, at least.
As far as adapters are concerned, he wants to know, is there an adapter option? That's the second part of his question. As for adapters, there are a few adapters out there, but they're really designed for different types of connectors used on handheld radios, not the mobile. So typically, you're not going to see the adapters on the mobile. Like, for instance, there are adapters that convert a multi-pin Motorola or an ICOM to a 1 or 2-pin Kenwood audio accessories, that sort of thing. But your best bet really is to find a mic holder to mount in your vehicle that you can clip the hand mic on. That's my personal take on it. It's just rig something up, and you might be able to clip the mic on a visor or something like that if you're allowed to do that. Some states, I think they don't even allow you to have that on visors. I'm not absolutely sure, but I don't personally recommend that. But if you can locate and install a mic holder that will accommodate a belt or shoulder clip, that's probably your easiest and most economical option, in my opinion.
We do have, I don't know if I should really mention this because I don't know how far out it is, but I think within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to have a product that's an adapter for the KG1000G mic. People have asked to be able to use their K1 accessories, like a K1 speaker mic with a KG1000G mobile radio. Mm-hmm. And we have a little electronic device, it's a special board we had made. And it's going to allow you to plug in any K1 mic. But another cool thing is it has a gain control. People have asked for a gain control.
That's cool.
On the KG1000 mic. But this adapter will let you do that and plug in a K1 mic. And there are even some desktop mics that have a K1 connector. So it will enable you to use a wider array of mics with the KG1000 radio. Or the KG1000 series of radios, I guess I should say.
We'll keep
Look for
you
that. It's
posted.
probably a couple weeks away.
Well, we'll keep everyone posted. Just keep an eye on our blog, and we'll let everyone know when this new product arrives. Well, I guess it does it for our comments and questions in this episode. Send in your comments and questions for Danny or myself to show@by2wayradios.com. If you want to know more about today's topic or about two-way radios in general, check out our forum discussions at twowayradioforum.com. A lot of these topics are discussed right there, and it's free to join. It's free to join. Of course, you can subscribe to the Two-Way Radio Show directly from our website at twowayradioshow.com or hear it just about anywhere you can find a podcast. And you can also subscribe by email. Just click subscribe by email on the Two-Way Radio Show podcast page at twowayradioshow.com. Enter your email address, and you'll get the latest episode of the Two-Way Radio Show as soon as it's released. And also, now that we're also on YouTube and Rumble and all those good places, please feel free to like and subscribe and ring the bell and all that other good stuff if you like the show and want to hear or watch more. Well, I guess that does it for our episode. Before we go, any final comment, Danny?
I don't think so.
All right. Today's show is sponsored by TWRS.com. Whether you're searching for two-way radios for general consumer or business use, Two-Way Radios can help you find the best solution for your needs. Give us a call at 1-800-584-1445 or enter our live chat at TWRS.com. Well, everyone, as always, thanks for listening, and until next time, for the Two-Way Radio Show, I'm Rick Savoya.
And I'm Danny Feemster.
And we're out.